Hey, welcome back to The Truth, where today we're going to have a mix-up of pace. Going to throw a different video in there that I really haven't tried, but I thought about today. I actually like the idea of this. Don't worry, we'll still get my prediction video, but that'll be coming out tomorrow. This video, I wanted to give my thoughts and opinions on the wild card round. You know, I've thought about it and talked my opinions about it to multiple people, but I haven't talked to y'all about it. Like I've given my thoughts on who probably would win, but not for sure. I haven't given my thoughts on like how I feel about these teams and where they are and where they're progressing. So to fix things up, I predicted this. And it ended up like this. I believe I got 2 games right. But that's not why this isn't discussion about this game. I guess to get into it, let me just start from the top to the bottom. We'll talk about the Browns versus Texas game. I am perplexed on the Browns' future. Because on one hand, they have a lot of talent and they have a lot of potential. But on the other hand, at this point, I don't know if they're going to achieve that. Now, I'll say this first and foremost. I am a firm believer that you can restructure contracts and you are one draft away from making big changes. You hit one draft, then that going into that year, you're going to have a great season. You're going to do a lot better if you hit on the draft. So pair it along with if you have a good offseason. But with that being said, I'm perplexed because I don't know if the Browns will restructure. I don't know if they will draft well going into the season. And that's really the problem here. What is the Browns' future after losing the first week to I don't know offense to CJ Stroud, but he's a rookie quarterback. Like you are, even without Deshaun Watson, the team overall didn't. I mean, look, I'm not going to put a lot of the faults on the whole team. It wasn't the whole team's fault. Like Flacco had a lot of fuel into why they lost, but it wasn't just Flacco. And that's where I'm kind of sitting here saying, like, what is it going to take to get this Browns team over the hump, and can they realistically get it? With having to pay Deshaun Watson all that money. That's why I'm throw out the idea of restructuring some contracts. What kind of roster are they going to have going into next year? For me, it felt very disappointing because I felt like they could win this game. They had the defense, they had the offense, they just had to play clean football, and they didn't do that. They didn't play clean football. And like I said, I know a lot of people are going to throw it on Flacco. And I agree, a lot of it is on Flacco, but it's not all of it. Not all of it. Because you got to remember who signed Flacco. I'm not saying that action was wrong, because I haven't done the research. I haven't done the film studies and the scheme studies. I haven't done that yet. But what I'm saying is, I'm going to step into the situation looking at it as a whole. Not just Flacco, not just Deshaun Watson who got injured, not just Myles Garrett on the edge, but their entire team, including their coaching staff. And I really sit here and I ask myself, does this team have enough or what it takes to go make a run to try to win the Super Bowl? I don't think so. Not at this moment. Maybe next year, but not at this moment. They started out pretty rough at the beginning of the season. And they ended really rough at the end. So we'll see how they end up. But don't get me wrong, like, I feel that way. They went 11-6. Like, this is a good team. I just don't know if they can get it done, especially in the division, as tough as theirs. Getting into the other team, the Texans. Boy, oh boy, do the Texans have a bright future. Let me get into the bad. I'll say the bad in quotation marks. You can't see it, but I'm throwing my fingers up in quotation marks. The bad. the Texans might lose their offensive coordinator. Like, that is a very real possibility. I'm not going to say it's going to happen, but it's a possibility. For some reason, the name of the Texans offensive coordinator is fleeing my mind. But, I mean, his name is getting thrown around because it's impressive. Your first year offensive coordinator who had an insane offense. Don't get me wrong, you had lots of talent, and give credit to the team who drafted. Like that, the organization, D'Amico Ryans, the GM for the Texans, the scouts, incredible draft for them. They had an incredible draft. And they signed guys to some of the guys they signed not to relatively big deals made big impacts. That's smart. That's a smart organization. So I sit here and I figured out his name. It's Bobby Slowick. Bobby Slowick's name's been thrown around. Lots of teams want Bobby Slowick. But I sit here going, what's next? You've had a great first season. Are you going to take a step back, a leap back, or are you going to show the NFL, show other teams, yeah, I mean business if I'm the Texans? Where is that going to be? And that's what I'm so excited to see. But don't get me wrong, I think the Texans have a very bright future. Getting into the next game, the Dolphins. The Dolphins are in a slightly similar situation, not really. The problem with the Dolphins is they struggled against good teams. Like, I hate to say it, but they did. I mean, every team's good in the NFL, but NFL-wise, they struggled. Look, they took care of most of their schedule, but the problem is, how much depth, how far are you actually away from winning a Super Bowl? And I understand, hey, it was negative 30 degrees or something like that. But that really shouldn't be an excuse. I hate to say it, but it's the NFL. You overcome adversity. If you want to win the Super Bowl, you have to overcome adversity. They didn't do it. And I feel like a lot of these are overreactions to the teams who lose. Or at least maybe some of them. I don't know yet. I'm still getting my final thoughts as I'm talking to you. But nevertheless, to say that the Dolphins are going to be my Super Bowl favorites next season, I wouldn't say that. But I do think they have a brighter future than the Browns. They're playing in an easier division. I felt like they could have beat the Chiefs. But that's more on the Chiefs' failures than it is the Dolphins' success. It's really tough. And there are a couple teams like this. I'm still going, but there are a couple more teams like this. There are 2 more teams who I feel the exact same way I do with the Browns and the Dolphins. It feels like a blockade. And you really have to do well. You have to draft well and have a good offseason if you want to take a step forward. Because I know the Dolphins are trying to go all in. They got Jalen Ramsey. They got Xavier Howard. These are great pieces. But what I feel like they really struggled with is depth. There was a lack of depth. And then when you have pieces leave and you have youth come in with their mistakes, because younger guys are going to make more mistakes. They're still learning the NFL. I leave another question mark at where are they going to be next year? Also, I just want to make a note that I won't say I'll have these conversations, but I'll be talking about teams and commentating on their offseason once the season's officially over. Once the Super Bowl is played, the day after, I'm starting my season's reactions to these teams and each day I'm going to go over a different team and talk about how good they really are. Well, not talk about how good they are, but my thoughts on their acquisitions, where they could go, my mock drafts for them at that moment. But nevertheless, that I do want to talk about that because I think I can have a lot of good conversations with that. Moving on to the next team, we have the Chiefs. Man, the Chiefs were a team who I felt like they underachieved, and they still have underachieved. We saw them put 23, 26 points on a Dolphins team. Not a crazy good defense, but a really good offense. And their defense, and this is what the one thing I was sure about. They have a good defense. They have a good roster. The problem is they were underperforming. And schematically, they were too. They weren't running the football. They weren't running the football up the middle, which they do so freaking well. I'm sitting here like, dang. Like, it was 11-6 for a lot of teams is a good season. Here's the thing, though. For the Chiefs, it's not. And yet, we're sitting here saying they're going to the divisional round. They upset the Bills? Who knows? Who truly knows? But needless to say, the Chiefs they always have a bright future with their head coach, Andy Reid, and their quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. My main thing about the Chiefs and them going into the future and them continuing in the playoffs. Well, let me start that. To continue in the playoffs, keep running the football. Your receivers caught the ball, which was a good step. They caught the ball. But keep running the ball. You do amazing at that. And you're playing great defense. Like, I think the Chiefs have a good possibility of winning the Super Bowl. To their future, do not make the same mistake Belichick made. The problem with Belichick wasn't the fact that he didn't have a good scheme. Wasn't the fact that his players, well, how should I say this? It wasn't the fact that he wasn't a good coach or didn't have a good scheme. He was a great head coach, has a really good scheme. The problem is he tried playing GM when he wasn't. You can't do that. You can't. And to any head coach who's going to get, or any NFL team is going to get Bill Belichick as a head coach, I would not have him as your head coach. I mean, your GM. Don't do it. Have an actual GM who's going to put their foot down and say, look, Bill, I like you. You can coach, but I'm going to have the final say. I'm going to draft this roster. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Going back to the Chiefs, don't make that mistake. Don't make that mistake, and you could have a better dynasty than Tom Brady. Like, that's realistic. Let's be honest. Going into the Pittsburgh Steelers, there are a lot of people who are down on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Guys, they went 10-7 in a really tough division. Matter of fact, they went 5-1 in that division. Look, do they have holes in their roster? Yes. But what no one's talking about is they're the only roster in the NFL who's bringing back all of their starters. They're bringing back right now. Last time I did their adjustments to their needs in the draft from the positions they lost, they're bringing back every roster. That's impressive. You lose against the Bills. That's tough. Nobody wants to lose in the playoffs. Let me say that. I think everyone knows that. Nobody wants to lose in the playoffs. But with that being said, you're sitting there like you're sitting there going, I mean, we went, we went 10-7. We were first round exits, but at the end of the day, it's just kind of sitting there like, we're sitting there like, hey man, like, we could really do something next year if we're smart. They have They have all their draft picks. I mean, like if they're smart enough, they could do something. And that's what I feel like a lot of people don't understand. The the Bills are in a good not the Bills. The Steelers are in a really good situation. Like I'm excited to see what the Steelers are going to do this offseason. I want to know how they're going to attack the offseason, what they're going to do. Um, I want to know how they're going to figure out things. I think in 2024 there are like $7 or $8 million, if I'm not wrong, over the cap. Dang. You have every returning starter, you're $7 to $8 million over the cap. I believe. That's pretty good. That's a really good. You smartly restructure and then draft play and then go hit in the draft. And unlike some of these teams who have holes that are leaving players, you can go attack the draft. I'm trying to figure out how to say this. You can go attack the draft in a way of saying, we can just get better on the roster. And it will add depth. You're missing a lot of backups, but that's a good thing. Some positions that need depth are probably going to end up being, when you're looking at positions you can upgrade at, that can upgrade stars at. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Steelers address their defense. Buffalo. Starting out the season, I felt with a lot of people when they said, I didn't think it was a good team, but they have turned this roster around. Buffalo has played well these last couple. They've played well. I say this last couple weeks. That's fair enough. Played really well. I'm one of the teams who feels like they're always in it, but the problem is they run to the Chiefs. If they're gonna win it, this is their year. Honest opinion. Going to Philadelphia. When you lose both of your coordinators, if you're Nick Sirianni, you lose both of your coordinators. You'd imagine typically an NFL coach is good at one or the other, offense or defense. My main thought process right now, I don't know if this is true, is that Nick Sirianni is very similar to the Lions head coach in a way that he's not really that coach who's going to coordinate, have schemes. He's going to leave that to his offensive and defensive guys, but he's going to be a head coach. He's going to be a leader. We're going to see if Nick Sirianni is the same way. If let's say he fires his offensive coordinator, brings in another, or if he keeps his offensive coordinator, we're going to really see who Nick Sirianni is this next season. Because you go to the Super Bowl, and you take a big step back. You take a big, big step back. I know Jalen Hurts wasn't as good, but also you got to realize some of the schemes some of the plays that they're running aren't good either. I don't know how much say he has in the offense and the defense. I don't know. But I'm really going to see how good Nick Sirianni is next season. It's a very disappointing loss. I felt like they could, even with their injuries, they could have run away with this game, but they just played too poorly. The Buccaneers. I feel like the Buccaneers are benefactors of the situation that they're in. Don't get me wrong, Buffalo. Tampa Bay's played great with their situation. I'll say that. They have outperformed expectations. And that's good. You had 9-8 in the regular season, add another win in the postseason. That's good. But where is the future. I feel like they can really do things, but they have some big contracts coming up that are going to be really exciting to see on where they view themselves, really, and how they want to build this team. So I'm eager to see the future of Tampa Bay. But like all of these teams who I talk about who won, look, you got an even tougher matchup against Detroit. Now, if you upset Detroit, I'm gonna get behind you. I'm gonna really get behind you because that's gonna be impressive. But my main fear is they're gonna. I'm not saying this is gonna happen, but they're gonna get smacked by Detroit, and everyone's gonna go, "See, Tampa Bay was bad. Tampa Bay was terrible. Tampa Bay's not a bad team, NFL wise, too. Look, you win your division and you win a playoff game. That's good. They're just a team in a new era, and that's how I feel about Tampa Bay right now. But I'm very eager. I won't say they're bad now. They could be bad in the future, but I am very eager to see where this team is going to. There are a couple of teams in the playoffs I'm very eager to see about. The Los Angeles Rams. You drafted a lot of rookies. You have a lot of inexperience. Yet you were probably favorites in some of other people's eyes in this game. I feel like the Rams have a very bright future. They have a very bright future. You know, they also have a couple contracts coming up that are going to be interesting to see how they attack it. But with how well they're drafting, I think they could be like the Eagles of last year, where they just draft such a good team that, man, they're in the playoffs again. Credit to them. And I think right now, and this, my opinion will probably change, but right now I think they'll definitely be in the division next year. But that could change depending on who they play. The Detroit Lions. Detroit is so exciting. I mean, they're showing not just strides each season. They are jumping over chasms each season, making progress. If they don't go all the way, I'm going to be very interested to see how they're going to jump over that next chasm. Another team with a very bright future. A great head coach. What are they going to do the rest of the playoffs and next season? You know, I love the philosophy of Detroit. I love how they're attacking the offseason and the draft. They're drafting in a manner that kind of goes against the NFL standard, but it's working. And that's the key. A lot of people criticize their first round. I think they did great in the first round. Like, if you're looking at it from now to then, I think they did great. Look, I've been a firm, I'm going to use this example. I'm not saying this is, I want to phrase my words right. So what I'm thinking is the same thing you're thinking from hearing my words. It's not like they took a running back with their first round pick. And then they took a linebacker, but I feel like the running back was really what messed people up. They took a running back pretty early in the first round. And, typically you don't do that. The problem I have is I view them in the opposite way that people view the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons took Bijan Robinson, and everyone's like, oh, that's a great pick. That's a great pick. Don't worry, that's a great pick. They didn't need it. Detroit's the opposite. They took a first-round pick and a receiver and used them in a way that they needed it to this offense to succeed. And it played out so freaking well. Credit to Detroit for breaking the mold and thinking out the box. And this isn't any shit against Atlanta, but it's just to really get my point across on how well Detroit's doing so far. Green Bay. I did not think Green Bay was going to win this game. I thought the Cowboys were going to go deep. I didn't think they were going to win it. But the Cowboy. and Jordan Love looked great. My main fear about this Green Bay team, I know they're going to keep building. I know they're going to keep getting better, is that Jordan Love is going to start next season, or is going to play similar to next season, how he played at the start of the season. He wasn't that good at the start of the season, but he got better. He made strides improvement. My main fear is he regresses and to restart again. And then that third year, then he really pops off. I feel like Green Bay could be a really good team next year if Jordan Love starts where he stopped. That's a big if. It's a lot of momentum that he had. I feel like Green Bay is a team that benefits the more and more and more games they play. That's how I feel about them. And that's also on Swiss. I think they'll get better the more NFL games they play. They're that type of team. They just need experience. They're a very young roster. I think they're the youngest roster. So, a lot of people are criticizing the Green Bay Packers with their offensive coordinator. But look, I'm a firm believer you make steps forward and you evaluate and cut off the things that I say things. Look, I'm gonna keep it short with you. I'm a firm believer that if you don't succeed, you cut or fire the players or coaches that hurt you. And a lot of people believe that, but I don't want to say that because look, it's people's jobs at the end of the line. I don't want to sugarcoat either because I want to be honest and truthful with y'all. Are the Green Bay Packers going to do that? Because that's how you know good teams from bad teams is teams that hold on to positions, coaches, coordinators, players that look. I hate to say it, but they don't belong. They don't belong. Maybe in a different team, maybe in the college game, maybe they're great there, but they just don't belong in that organization or that team. That being said, it is that this team. What team are we? Are we going to get the team who self-evaluates and improves every year, or are we going to get the team who holds on too long? We'll see. The Dallas Cowboys. Dallas is a team who it was really, if you show, in my eyes, it was really, if you show improvement, keep going all in. But if you don't, it's time to move on. I feel like at this point, I'm evaluating Dak's film. It might be time to move on from him. It might be time to move on from Coach McCarthy. Just because, look, they're not getting the job done. They aren't going to get the job done. Sorry. But it doesn't mean that's the end of it. You can trade Dak and recuperate and build and possibly even be even better than this year, going 12-5. You could go 13-4 next year. But I think the right step forward is being the proactive team and not the reactive team and making changes, making those tough changes, because that will put the Cowboys over the top. Thank you all for watching. Let me know what y'all think. Do you agree with my takes? Do you hate my takes? I'm willing to make a follow-up video to this and talk about the comments. Let me know. But thank you all for watching, and I will talk to y'all next time.